and welcome to Your Health Matters. I'm your host, Dr. Peter Hogenkamp, and today I am very excited to be discussing my favorite subject, and that is the COVID vaccine. Why is the COVID vaccine my favorite subject? Well, it's because it is the way that we are going to return to the lives that we used to lead prior to last year. I am not 100% sure that we're going to go back entirely 100% to those lives, but we're pretty much going to get there. And the changes that we see will probably be for the better as well. When you think about other life-changing events like 9/11, we never went back to pre-9/11 days, and that's a good thing. Would you want to walk onto a plane nowadays without going through a metal detector? Of course you wouldn't. So a lot of these things that happen, 9/11, the pandemic, they change our lives drastically and for the worse for a while. But ultimately, I think they lead to some good changes moving forward. And I think we'll see that with the pandemic as well. So why is the pandemic going to be so greatly affected by this vaccine? Well, I want to start off talking about the 4 vaccines that we have in this country, 2 that are currently approved for use and 2 that are in phase 3 trials and will likely very shortly be approved. The first vaccine is the Pfizer vaccine. The Pfizer vaccine was developed with in close coordination with a German company called BioNTech. And this is an mRNA vaccine. Very simply, an mRNA vaccine means that this vaccine actually uses a piece of mRNA to worm its way into your cells and tells your cells to produce antibodies that keep them protected from the virus. It's very clever. This is a groundbreaking campaign. The first time that this technology has been used. And again, as I said before, we're probably going to use mRNA technology moving forward. So there's the first thing good thing that's come out of this pandemic is that we've basically developed in lightning speed time a way to produce a vaccine and a tremendously effective vaccine. I'll get to that in a second. The other vaccine that's approved is the Moderna vaccine. It's a very, very similar vaccine to the Pfizer vaccine. It also uses mRNA technology. Johnson & Johnson will be the next vaccine that's going to be approved. I'm thinking that it probably, certainly by March, we expect that to come out. The Johnson & Johnson does not use the mRNA technology. It's more of a standard base vaccine using technology that we've used before with other vaccines. It has, there's some pluses and minuses in that it's not quite as efficacious at stopping all disease. However, and this is going to be the key point from today's discussion, all these vaccines are highly, highly effective at preventing serious disease. In other words, if the vaccine is 70% effective at preventing all disease, like the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is, that means that some people may get milder symptoms. What we haven't really talked about, and we should talk about, is that all these vaccines have been tremendous at preventing serious illness. And serious illness is defined as hospitalization and or death. In other words, if these vaccines can prevent serious illness, to me, that means the pandemic is over with. If you get COVID, but you have mild cold-like symptoms, that's a lot different than getting COVID and going to the hospital and or dying. So the fact that these vaccines have been so effective at preventing serious illness really should be lauded. And I'm here to laud it. That's what I'm here doing, lauding it. The last vaccine is the AstraZeneca vaccine. And I have not yet seen the data on that yet. So I'm probably not going to talk about that too much. There are a number of other vaccines in the pipeline as well. I did want to mention some international vaccines. The much maligned Sputnik vaccine that Russia developed actually turns out to be a very good vaccine with 91% effectiveness. The Chinese have 3 vaccines actually that are being used, and I don't know anything about their efficacy data. It's harder to get efficacy data from the Chinese. I will say that the Chinese have sold that to many countries around the world, and it's being used, to my knowledge, very effectively, but I don't have the data on it, so I don't want to talk about it. So I wanted to talk about efficacy. Pfizer and Moderna, 90 and 95% respectively effective at preventing all COVID illness. That is absolutely tremendous. When you think about the average flu vaccine, it's about 50% of effective. Here's a vaccine that's 90 and 95% effective. And again, I want to make this point because it needs to be made very clearly. That's preventing all disease. In terms of preventing serious disease, these vaccines are very, very close to 100% effective. In other words, so you get COVID, you have some mild symptoms and it goes away. If that's all COVID was, we would never even be talking about COVID right now. The pandemic would never have existed. It would be another virus that causes some, upper respiratory symptoms, and so what? And that's what this vaccine has the ability to do, to excuse me, to bring us back to maybe I have COVID, to bring us back to those days. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is about 70% effective, but again, it looks like it's almost universally protective against serious disease. And I did see the excuse me, the AstraZeneca vaccine also highly effective at preventing serious illness. Safety. I wanted to talk a little bit about safety because obviously when you're putting a foreign substance into your body, it's something that you're concerned about. I've had both my vaccines. I did very well. That's an N of 1 study. That isn't all that telling, but I just wanted to mention that to you. But you should be concerned about that vaccine and what it does. In the Moderna trial, this is very interesting stuff here and just powerful stuff. It amazes me how safe this vaccine was. There were 1% of people that who received the Moderna vaccine that had a serious side effect. No deaths, I will tell you, no deaths, but serious side effects, which include maybe anaphylaxis, or there's a number of things that would be called adverse side effects. And of note, 1% of the patients who received the placebo also got serious adverse events. In other words, there was no difference in the rate of serious events from the vaccine versus the people that got placebo. Stuff happens to people. If you don't get a vaccine in the next 100 days, you might have something happen to you. If you happen to have gotten a vaccine, we wonder whether that's going to be attributable to the vaccine. And because they're able to compare this against the placebo, 1% versus 1%, you can see that there really was no increase in adverse events at all. So to me, that's amazing. I will say that in my office, all of us got the vaccine. A number of the people had some, kind of mild symptoms. I don't think they were saying they were mild when they got them. Some myalgias, fatigue, swollen arm, that kind of thing. But all these things were self-limited and they went away with time. If you ask any of those people if they were happy that they had the vaccine, despite having, suffered through a day of backache or headache, that kind of thing, they would all tell you that they're happy they've had it. So the vaccine is safe. And please don't just take my word for it. Please just don't take the drug company's word for it. You also want to take the word of the independent safety monitoring organization that went over all the data. In fact, all this data before the drug company, after the drug company goes through it, it then goes through these independent monitoring boards and then onto the government as well. Many eyes have laid on this data before it's approved. You're not taking one person's word for it. This is a very safe, very efficacious vaccine, all of them, in fact, and they are our way out of the pandemic. I wanted to talk about a couple things, and one is availability. I found some interesting statistics today, and I wanted to share them with you. 55,943,800 vaccines have been delivered as of yesterday. That's quite a number of vaccines. Of that, 33,878,000 have been administered as of February 3rd. So we are actually getting some vaccines into arms, that's for sure. We plan, the Biden administration plans to deliver 150 million vaccines in the first 100 days of his presidency. So if you take a look at that, that would bring us to the end of let me see here, February, March, May, April. So by the end of April, so beginning of May, to have 150 million doses of vaccine into this country. That is absolutely tremendous. So people say to me, well, this is all data and it's kind of abstract. And, what does it really mean? Well, if you take a look at the graph that's up behind me, hopefully, thanks, Chris, you're going to see something that's amazing. And that is that we started vaccinating people about the middle of December. And early December, middle of December is when we really got things rolling in this country. If you take a look at the graph, you'll see there that the cases kept on going up and up until about January 8th. On January 8th, there were over 300,000 new cases of COVID in this country, which is a disaster. 300,000 cases. And the average, the number of the 7-day average at that point in time was about 260,000. So on or about early January, 260,000 people a day got COVID. I say that because that was the high point. And right around then, that's when the effect of the vaccine is going to start to take effect. Now, why do I say that? Well, because both these 2-dose vaccines that we're getting in this country, we're really looking at the full immunity to be achieved approximately 5 to 6 weeks after you get your first dose. Number one is you get your first dose, then you wait 3 weeks, and you get another one another 3 weeks. It's a little bit different on either vaccine, but generally you're looking at 6 weeks, and then a couple weeks after that. So if you take a look, when the vaccines start kicking in, we started giving them in December, and now here, kind of early January, we're starting to see the effect of the vaccine. Now here we are in February, we're starting to get more and more people vaccinated, more and more people immune. Take a look at the difference. As of February 3rd, only 109,000 people had been new cases of COVID were reported. That's down from 300,000. And the 7-day average went from 260 to 136. That is a remarkable drop in the number of cases per day. Now, when we talk about deaths and hospitalizations, that's going to lag behind, as it always does. But I think what we really want to look at when we gauge the effectiveness of the vaccine is this number of new cases. It went down on 7-day average, went down from early January from 260,000 to 136,000. I'm impressed by that, and I think you should be as well. So as we continue to get more and more shots in arms, that number is going to continue to go down. I'm very optimistic. I'm very hopeful that this pandemic is going away. And there's a lot of reasons that I feel that way. And you can't attribute this drop in number of cases strictly to vaccine. There are other issues. There certainly are other issues. Number one is in the hot spots around the country, which are generating the bulk of the cases, you're already looking where a significant number of people have already had the virus and therefore aren't getting it again. That's this phenomenon we call herd immunity. And the more people get it, the fewer people there are to get it. When you think about a virus and how it lives and replicates and exists, a virus can't live on its own. It has to live inside your cells. And if it infects a person, the whole idea of the virus is kind of modus operandi, is to then spread that infection to other people so that it continues to live. If a virus walks into a room in a person with 9 people there, and every single one of those people has had the virus, it can no longer continue this replication trend, and it stops right there. The virus will then just ultimately be eliminated by the host, and if it doesn't continue to spread, that's the end of the virus. So when you have a significant number of people who've already had the virus, this really makes a lot of problems for the virus, and we all love to hear about problems for the virus because none of us particularly like this virus, especially me. So We think that herd immunity probably needs to be somewhere in the area of 60 to 70%. However, if you were looking at that graph right there, which is showing that steep decrease in cases in the last 5 weeks, I think we're seeing a combination of herd immunity, and maybe the herd immunity is helping even at like 20%. You could also possibly say people are starting to take more seriously things like social distancing and masks, isolation, all those kind of basics of managing a pandemic. However, I'm not sure I would really lend a lot of credence to that theory, because we're talking about the same population of people. Why would the behavior of the same population of people change now versus 5 weeks ago? So although there are people, excuse me, that do suggest that that's possibly something that's at play here, I don't think that's the case. That's my opinion. The other issue is we're also kind of getting downwind from, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and things, all those events which kind of bring people together and therefore spread the virus. And I think that's in play as well. But if you ask me, judging by the time, where the vaccine program started, when the immunity starts hitting, and this curve, how it's descending very sharply now, very sharply. We're not talking about flattening the curve. We're talking about this. And I love it. I really attribute that to the vaccine. And as we get more and more shots in arms, those numbers are going to continue to go down. There's other reasons for optimism. Currently in the United States, we have 2 vaccines, the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine. We're also going to get a 3rd vaccine, I think, no later than early March. And that's the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Again, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a 1-shot vaccine, which is less efficacious at preventing all disease, but is still highly effective at preventing serious disease. And again, that's really what we want. We're going to, as the number of people who had the disease, who had the vaccine go up, our herd immunity stats go up. And again, that virus is going to be hitting a wall. I love that. I don't like this virus. The last thing is, again, as we start to look to the spring and the weather improves in the Northern Hemisphere, you're going to see more people out of doors. It's people congregating indoors that cause this virus to spread, especially people congregating indoors where they're not wearing masks and they're not staying 6 feet apart. Outdoor activity is good. You all remember last summer when our numbers went down a lot prior to the vaccine, prior to really any kind of medicinal breakthrough for COVID. So what you're seeing then was just the normal the improvement in a respiratory virus during warmer weather months. We've seen that all the time. We've seen it with the flu. We've seen it with all adenovirus, the common cause of the cold. All these other cold viruses, we all know this. They go away during the summer. COVID did not go away nearly as much as we would have liked to, but it certainly went down. Take a look at those numbers. They were way down and started going up in the fall when people started congregating indoors. As we get to the spring and folks start going outside again, that's going to be another thing that's going to help us get those viral numbers down. So then we get to the spring and summer where we finish off the vaccination for this country. I really think things are going to be looking good for next fall in terms of COVID. I believe that to be true. What are some of the possible issues that could kind of throw a wrench into the works? Well, number one would be people not getting the vaccine, which is a big mistake. There's only one reason, the one absolute contraindication to not getting this vaccine, and that is having an anaphylactic reaction to this vaccine. So if you had an anaphylactic reaction to the first dose, don't get the second one. If you've had reactions to previous vaccines, that is a cause for consideration. I don't think alarm. As a primary care doctor, I've told a lot of my patients who've had similar issues to go get their vaccine, stay an extra 15 minutes so that they do have an anaphylactic reaction. They're there with medical treatment available for them. To date, none of my patients have had a reaction, a significant reaction. Again, swollen arm, painful arm, myalgias, headache, slight fever, yes. But those are all considered to be mild symptoms and well worth it. get your vaccine. What are some other issues? Well, we talk a lot about the variants, and I wanted to mention that briefly. As you know, these viruses mutate. And as these viruses replicate literally trillions of times, you're going to get some mutations. The lion's share, the overwhelming majority of these mutations are absolutely meaningless. Most of them make the virus less effective at transmitting itself and less virulent. Every once in a while, one of those, the virus kind of hits the jackpot and it becomes more transmittable or more virulent, which means causing more significant illness with the mutation. We've had several of these variants now. We all heard about the British variant, the South African variant, that kind of thing. The issue, though, is are they going to be more of a problem for the vaccine? And there is a lot of data out, that I reviewed. My take on it is that although there may be some more cases of it may actually cause the vaccine to be less effective at preventing all cases. The vaccine still prevents the serious disease that we all want to keep away from. So the vaccine is still effective against these variants. And if you ask me, or Tony Fauci, who said this as well, I don't mean to compare myself to Tony Fauci, although we both did go to Holy Cross, so there's that similarity. The key is to get the vaccine, eliminate the vaccine. The more eliminate the virus, the more we eliminate the virus, the less transmission, the less replications go on, the less chance for future mutations. What we don't want is for that virus to mutate to the point where it becomes where the vaccine becomes ineffective. Now, that would be a very unlikely situation. It's within the realm of possibility. The way to get rid of that is to get rid of the virus first. I wanted to wrap up and just say a couple words about what we do now here in February. What we do now here in February is we get the vaccine. We get the vaccine. You sign up at vermonthealth.gov, you register, and you get your vaccine when you can. If you're living in a different state, you sign up with arkansashealth.gov or whatever state you live in, health.gov. Sign up, get the vaccine as soon as you can. Tell all your friends to do it as well. Until that day comes, and again, it's coming, hopefully this spring or at the latest by summer for everybody, you're going to continue to do all the things that we've done. You're going to wear a mask out in public. You're going to stay 6 feet away from people. You're going to try to be outside as much as possible because we all love the outdoors anyway. You're going to avoid gatherings, for instance, for the Super Bowl, where there's a lot of people in a small space, because those are super spreader events. So we are going to continue to wash our hands. Although these are respiratory viruses, if someone coughs on a table and you wipe your table and you put it to your eyes, you're going to get that virus. It probably doesn't last nearly as long as we think, but that's still a way to get the virus, especially if someone is right near you and coughs and the virus spreads onto your hands. Wash your hands, use Purell, wear that mask, wear eye protection. Don't do things that you don't have to do, like go to a Super Bowl party. We are on the edge of the end. We are close to the end of this pandemic. And so let's keep as many people alive for as long as we can until the vaccine saves us from this plight. I wanted to thank you again for tuning in to Your Health Matters, whether you're listening on PEG TV in Rutland or Peter Hogenkamp's Your Health Matters PEG YouTube station or on the podcast. If you have enjoyed today's episode, go to my website, peterhogenkampbooks.com, and there is a list of not only previous shows, but also other podcasts and some of my books as well. Thank you again. I very much appreciate your attention and your watching. Have a great day. Cheers.